Welcome to the SARE Ladies podcast, the sister brand of Subtle Asian Real Estate, where our mission is to get more people that look like us participating in the real estate industry. We invite experts to not just talk about real estate, but also about our unique identity as Asian women and the cultural values that shape who we are as investors. I'm Anita Wong.
And I'm Tiffany Lee. We're both real estate agents and investors based in the Bay Area and New York City. Whether you're a seasoned real estate pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone here. So pour yourself a glass of wine or boba tea and join us as we celebrate the achievements and unleash the untapped potential of AAPI women in the real estate industry.
Welcome to the SARE Ladies podcast.
Now let's get on with the show.
The following is an important legal disclosure regarding the content of the SARE Ladies podcast. Entertainment purposes only. The content provided in all episodes of the SARE Ladies podcast, including discussions, opinions, interviews, and any other type of content, is intended solely for entertainment purposes. It should not be considered professional, financial, legal, or any other type of advice. No professional advice. The hosts, guests, and producers of the SARE Ladies podcast are not professional advisors. The content provided should not be relied upon for making any personal, financial, or business decisions. We strongly encourage our listeners to seek advice from qualified professionals before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast. No liability. The creators, hosts, and producers of the SARE Ladies podcast shall not be liable for any errors or omissions in the content provided, nor for any actions taken by any listener based on the information provided in the podcast. Any reliance you place on such information is therefore strictly at your own risk. No endorsement of investments. While we may discuss a range of topics, including investments and financial strategies, such discussions are for illustrative and entertainment purposes only. The SARE Ladies podcast does not endorse or recommend any specific investments or financial products. Consult professionals. We strongly advise our listeners to consult with a qualified professional for advice tailored to their personal circumstances before making any investment or financial decisions. No association. There is no association between SARE Ladies and a guest speaker or professional. By listening to the SARE Ladies podcast, you acknowledge and agree to this disclaimer and understand that the content provided is not intended to replace professional advice.
Now on to the show.
Welcome. Oh my God, Tiff, we have made it. Welcome one and all to our final episode of season 2 on the SARE Ladies podcast.
Happy holidays, Anita. It's incredible, isn't it? I honestly didn't think we could stick to anything this long, but yes, 24 episodes completed this season 2, and season 3 is coming to you guys hot in 2024.
Yeah, and I say this with some hesitation because don't get me wrong, doing a podcast is a lot of freaking hard work, but the journey has actually been really fun and pretty effortless. I say look forward. It's something that I actually really look forward to on my Friday mornings, and it's actually incredible. I kind of feel like how much knowledge I've gathered personally from all the people that have come on our podcast and how it helps mature me as an investor and also help answer a lot of questions of like those internal questions I had in the beginning. Like, what is my identity as an Asian woman in the real estate space? How has the whole podcasting experience been for you, Tiff?
Well, I just recently discovered last year that I'm an Asian woman.
Yeah.
It's wild.
What was the clue? Was it the part where you have like char siu bao for breakfast and I see you hawking it every morning?
or I have like I started doing a thing where I like steam my eggs for breakfast, but that's you do that. I think you rubbed off on me. I watched you do that, and then I eat the steamed eggs too.
It's healthy and it's like an American like omelet, but healthier.
Or you put some soy sauce and chung in it. It's chung and scallions.
It hits like home. It's good.
I put some sriracha. It's so good. So yeah, we've been having our Hong Kong breakfast on our Friday mornings while we record these podcasts for you guys, listeners at home. But yeah, you said something interesting. What do you mean? Like, what other internal questions did you grapple with, Anita, that you feel like a more complete person?
Well, I feel like I dealt with a lot of things around like perfectionism, I think, during the last couple of seasons, and then about like how that has to play with my own investment confidence, So a lot of times I feel like I am lagging and it's because I want the deal to be perfect, but there's no such thing really. And I feel like I discovered in the SARE Ladies podcast, I'm like, okay, well, this is an immigrant thing, like the scarcity mindset is also an immigrant thing. And so I see the direct relationship these things have with my business.
Cool. So would you say the podcast has been very therapeutic for you, I guess? Like,
yeah, I no longer pay for therapy.
We don't have to. Guys, you don't have to go to therapy anymore. Why pay $200 an hour for a therapist when you can pay for apply that $200 to a Yeti mic, log on to StreamYard or Google Meet with your friend across the country, and have conversations with complete strangers. and make discoveries that way. That's way better than therapy.
Yeah, I feel like like most of my therapy sessions are just me talking at her, but I'm not saying please continue to see your therapist
Yeah.
for people that still need it. Absolutely for 100%. But sometimes I just need to just talk it out, so I think that's here.
I heard this hilarious joke. I know I'm taking it as a tangent, but there was this thing that someone said, girls think their therapists care about them the same way men think strippers are in love with them. You're like paying them to listen to your problems. Anyway, it's kind of
I am.
Right?
I pretty much am. Yeah, like sometimes I mean I have a couple there with me and my husband, and I'm like sometimes I just like I'm airing it out with her first, and then she synthesizes the thought for me, and so I can present the reasonable package back to my husband. I swear this has saved my marriage in a lot of fights. So
is he
highly
sitting in
recommend.
the same room with you while that's happening, or this is the marriage? Oh, so marriage counseling is you guys go separately and then together?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do both. Like both of those. Yeah. So we talk about stuff separately, and then we gather once a quarter to talk about things that are like how are things going. So yeah.
So she's like a mediator.
She's
right?
a mediator.
She's a
Yeah.
mediator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know that like in divorce proceedings, you can have a mediation instead of a divorce? So the mediator makes things like nice and neat, so it's not an ugly divorce. It's like it happens in steps.
Yes, but I think that's for everything. But yeah, I think
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
you
you're
should always
right.
have mediation first. But yes.
Yeah.
It's basically your third opinion. Your objective opinion about when you're fighting for dishes, who is right.
Yeah. Because early on, year one, right? People don't know this, but we were talking about seeing a business couples therapist at some point.
Yes.
I wonder if that's in the cards for us in 2024.
I know we haven't done that yet. We have this podcast apparently.
Yeah, this podcast has been delaying the need for a business for a business therapist for the longest time. But you know what, I would say 2 years ago, actually, in watching these clips again, which is what this episode is about, guys, you and I might forget because it's so far in the rear view, but the podcast used to be a point of contention for us when we were in our early production days, because someone, not naming names, but maybe the person who looks like a frat boy wasn't hitting deadlines on time.
That's 100% true.
And we've managed to work it out, right? Without a therapist. Yeah, I think it was clear communication and setting expectations, right? Like you know what, I will say, Anita, in my relationship with you, I've learned a lot about partnership and on what things I can work on and what things I bring to the table. Like I've learned a lot about myself. Ooh, okay, you know what? I've changed my answer. Okay, so in addition to finding out that I'm an Asian woman this year, I also found out that I am also in some ways like a crappy business partner, but in some ways a really good business partner. And I know
you said it, not me.
Okay, well,
just kidding.
You know what, Anita? No one's perfect. You need to put that perfection away.
Absolutely. I think it's what I've discovered is that I think it's like dealing with all I feel like we both have our specialties, obviously, and how we shine. And I think it's just like learning about you. Let's just say as a podcaster, it's like just for your improv background and all of that, it's like you do things on the fly much better. Like I pre-plan everything. I write out my paragraphs. I need all of that. I need the order. I need to go through all of that. And then all I literally put in Tiffany's section is like insert response here. And she does this whole thing basically by herself. And so is it contingent sometimes if she's hungover or not? How good the quality is? Yes, but isn't that sort of the beauty of raw entertainment? Like I don't know.
Well, I will say it's good to have Anita to be those anchor points. I will say that A and N in Anita is the same A and N in the word anchor, because not only is she my co-anchor in the podcast, she is the anchor and the spine that like really settles us in and like keeps us super focused and still, because if it were on me, we would meander forever. So I love that she has like these paragraphs for us to like reference back on, because I'll like swirl around and I'm like, oh wait, we have to get back on track. What were we talking about? So that's I think I think that's what podcasting, the beauty of podcasting, it plays to both of our strengths of like, hey, this discussion needs to have structure, but also what are some fun like little side quests we can find along the way in the structure.
I feel like you've definitely taught me a lot about ADHD and like needing to be like, all right, this is the thing that we're sticking to. You're allowed to fly for this certain period of time, but afterwards we come back here. Like this is the direction.
Fair. And you know what? I'll even tie that back to a lot of the investors that we talk to, or the investors that like ask us questions and we see posting on the SARE group. A lot of people have shiny object syndrome, especially when it comes to investing. Like everyone wants to do everything everything everywhere all at once, right? And it's hard to do that that's a very quick way to burn through money if you're just like, ooh, let me try this without really delving deeply into things. So I think in that respect, like even having a podcast like this and pontificating ideas with subject matter experts, hearing how they do it kind of at least gives me, I think, a little bit of more fluency when I go and talk to my clients about, strategies that I think that they can employ, because I've kind of like hashed it out with like not only here on the podcast, but also behind the scenes with other meetings that I've had with, subject matter experts that we met through the podcast, and we've continued to have those conversations offline with them. So it's been a great like learning and relationship building experience for me, the podcast, if we look back the last 2 years.
I think too, it's like hearing it from like, basically we do this all the time. So hearing like what women really struggle with, like whether you're in the beginning stages or late stages, I feel like I can pretty much summarize in like basically like 5 main like big topics, like what women struggle. I mean, at least like if you're especially as an early investor, and we try to talk about those things all the time. And I swear it's like the same things. Like one, you're just talking about like sort of like real estate ADHD, just like not knowing, having so many different lanes to go down and not knowing where to start. That is one. The other one is like certainly perfectionism issues. I think especially for women to not like to make sure that it has to be the perfect and the right deal. Certainly like fear of loss is a big one as well. I think everyone fears losing money on anything, but real seasoned investors, they learn to lose money because they know that they can gain it back later, right? Or like, what is another one, Tiffany? I feel like we've gone through a lot of these during our time here at SARE Ladies.
I think the losing money thing and the inclination to be cheap. I hate. Feel like I hate cheap people, and I hate being cheap.
I'm cheap people.
I hate when you get so cheap. But no, you know what? It's good because it helps with the budgeting. I need you because I don't like being cheap. I like that you track the numbers. And I'm like, hey, can we buy, like, case in point, SARE Ladies just invested in a new platform to help us cut our real estate clips. And I found it and I was like, hey, Anita, this would work so well for our workflow. Do we have it in our budget to like afford something like this? Like, does it make sense? And then she turns on her MBA brain and is like, well, you know what? All right, you guys want to hear how like anal Anita and meticulous she is about like tracking how efficient we all are? She makes everyone log into Clockify and log in all their tasks that they do. And she like uses all these data points to like figure out like, hey, we shouldn't be spending so much time on this, or, this is going to take consistently this much time. So like she's good at allotting all of that and keeping like us on track in that specific way. And she does the same thing with the books as well. So I think, this is my very public endorsement. If you're considering a business partnership with Anita, or like having her as your LP or your GP, or investing, or having her like take on any sort of role in your thing and you're kind of on the fence, this is my public endorsement that Anita is amazing. And she will make sure that every penny is stretched as far
it's my Asian background as well. Also, what I'm learning is, so much of like that is like the nickel and diming, of like being, I think, just being raised in Asian culture, which I have to unlearn too, right? I have to learn there is strengths to it. There is that like, analyzing it that is like really useful. And I think like not being wasteful is a good thing to have. But on the flip side, like that same part of me is like, you need to time the market for the cheapest possible deal that you can get, or like the cheapest person you can work with, or give you the most commission cuts. No longer. So I am like working to unlearn those things, and I will point to I actually learned it in a Kai episode. Thanks, Kai.
Yes, that's a
there.
great segue.
Yes.
So you want to start jumping into the
Actually, yeah.
clips? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so everyone, today we're actually going to do a season 2 look, and Tiffany and I have clipped some of our favorite episodes and lessons through this year and what we've kind of learned from it. And so I haven't seen any of Tiffany's clips, but I'm going to tell you, I'm willing to bet that there are a lot of fart jokes maybe in her.
We'll see.
And mine will be very serious. That's my prediction for the rest of this episode. But we're going to explain, and we're going to talk about why these were our favorite. And then we'll also link them in the show notes. So if you want to catch the entire episode, it will be there for you. Okay. Without further ado,
take us to our first clip.
Yes. So my first clip I chose as one of my favorite lessons. I would say I use almost on a daily, where we featured Kai Wynn, of CEO of Absolute Mortgage Lending, on episode 6. So
by the way, that was our best episode in 2023. Kai's episode.
Best is maybe relative, but most popular. Yeah, most popular episode.
Yes,
so I think if you have never jumped into our podcast before, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Also, Kai is honestly the most amazing person to know.
Yeah, let's talk about Kai. We should talk about Kai. Let's like talk about how much we love Kai before we went. One of the nicest guys ever, right? Such a sweetheart.
Oh my gosh.
I think I picked the Kai clip too. We both picked the Kai clip. I'll play my Kai clip after your Kai clip. But yeah, so let's run your Kai clip and then talk about the messaging that comes from it.
A lot of people say, "Hey, can you cut you?" I said, "No, I want to pay them." Eventually, when you build that trust, and they will automatically take care of you. And when they do it at their will, it's okay. I always try to tell people, when people bring me wholesale deal, let's pay them their full commission. They work hard just like you. Let's not try to cut their money, because they need to make a living as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not focus on. There's too many of me instead of us. Let's think of us as when we invest. It's not just me investing, but us. How do we invest together?
So something that I love about this clip, and I guess I'll just start with an intro about Kai, but Kai is one of these people that in the episode, he just comes from really humble beginnings, just really lots of siblings, really humble beginnings. And he is just one of the most positive people and just most honest people, and just really successful entrepreneur. Just like has a national mortgage lending company, has started multiple businesses, multifamilies across the nation as well. And people just generally like him, and so he's extremely well connected, especially if you've gone to Dallas. Everyone knows Kai. And so something that really hits me in this particular clip that I take away all the time is like, again, that like nickel and diming, right? And it's like this nickel and diming is certainly a thing in like the Asian culture that is that just happens all the time, especially in our business, as a business, as a realtor, right? And it comes from both sides, honestly. So I've got clients asking me to slash my commission, add in extras here, extras there, to the point like I could be shelling out thousands just on one deal. And on the flip side, I've also seen myself too cutting my own commission before clients even need to say it. I'll just say, I'll just give an extra 5% or whatever. And that is giving it away, right? Giving my own value away. And so I think what this does on both sides is just sort of cheapens the relationship. It cheapens the quality of the relationships. And it just turns into this whole churn and burn situation where we're losing sight of the quality of building something long-term, right? And so I actually get this question all the time. Like, how do you find those killer deals? How do you get those off-market gems? Like, how do you get those off-market deals? That is literally like maybe every 5 questions on the SARE Facebook. And then I'm going to tell you, the answer is do it like Kai does, So listen, if you want to be on the good side of things, this is a simple truth. treat people right.
I love that.
Consider it like a partnership. If you win, we both win. And so I think a lot of folks don't get this, but I think it's also from Tony Lin, too, CEO of Link Multifamily, who was also on our podcast. In this business, especially in real estate, commercial real estate, residential real estate, there are only few brokers that really run the show. There's obviously more in residential, but honestly, city by city, there's only the same few faces trading with the same deals over and over again. So if you want to get inside on those deals, you've got to build trust with your brokers. And remember, there is nothing more that brokers value than these two things: loyalty and the ability to close. Okay, so that is it.
Amen.
Right?
Oh
And
my
this goes
God.
for contractors, this goes for like all of those things, right? Consider it a long-term deal, right? It's like, I just know if I have a client who's consistently trying to devalue me, I'm also not going to be putting my best foot forward for them, right? It's like, and then would I call them again? Probably not. Certainly not tell them about all these deals that I've been finding, right? So I think don't expect someone to trust you right off the bat, right? You have to pay your dues with it. But just acknowledge, just like, you have a living to make, and I'm respecting that. It's like, I respect that you have kids, you have a home to also keep up. And it's not, and my goal is not to just squeeze every penny out of you and then just leave you on the side of the road.
Yeah. And yeah, to your point, it goes both ways. Like now my skin itches when people ask if I'll take a cut in my commission. I almost want to like rewind conversations where I've agreed to it like in the past and be like, actually, no, I'm revising my business plan. I changed my mind because I can't give you that service level if I'm cutting my commissions. Like, it's either like, we cut it or I'm just going to terminate the relationship. Like, it's okay if I don't get this lesser percentage, because at the tail end of a deal, I'm always so exhausted because, and on the front end, I feel like, especially with real estate deals, it takes up so much of my brain space. Even when I'm not in front of a client, I'm still thinking about the deal. Like, it's those hours, like, and I'm still ruminating like different ways to like kind of maneuver it. And if I'm not getting the full percentage that I'm owed, I get resentful that I'm thinking about it so much. Like, I'm still trying to do a good job. And at the end of the day, it's like, I would have been less stressed, like flipping burgers at a fast food joint and would have made the same amount of money. Like, yeah, maybe the commission is a lot of money, but the amount of hours I spent stressing over it I couldn't clock out because my brain was still thinking about it is like, I no more of that. It's like, this is you're having access to my IP, dude. Like, it's full commission or like I'm out. There's only so much energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's not, and it's I think a particular thing for women as well to not give themselves away, right? And it devalues yourself. It devalues your obviously own self-worth about how you see things, and it's a short road for you after then. So yeah, so that's my first. All right, how about you, Tiff?
All right, I'm gonna run my Kai clip so we can get a little sense of his personality. Yeah. Okay.
You told us growing up poor is not your fault, but dying poor is. What does this mean to you? And how do you apply it to your life?
Being poor growing up was not, you can't control that. But if you die poor, then it's something that you have to change. You have to take responsibility for what you want to become. So our own logo has the two pillars, and word absolute and math is positive. Anything that's negative, that's inside of absolute value, is still positive. So I only wanted positive energy around me.
So nerdy. I love it.
So nerdy.
I never made that connection until you told me it was absolute value.
Yeah.
I thought it was just absolute mortgage lend. Wow.
Yeah,
Mine is blown. Mine is blown today.
Yeah, and people don't understand why. It's because I try to be a very, very positive person. So
I thought it was because it was absolute vodka and
No, I took a shot before. I really did.
To be fair, it's Friday, so you're allowed. It's fine.
And it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
All right. That was my Kai clip. That was my homage to Kai of and you were the one with the zinger there. But I love these little creative discovery moments that we have in the podcast, where that one when he was explaining the thinking behind his and philosophy behind his absolute mortgage lending logo. I thought it was just like absolute, but it was, it was math. So there was some Asian nod to it. And also it speaks to his personality as well. And it's such a nice reflection of like all the so to Anita's point, like she's picking all the serious clips and I'm picking the silly clips, but it's just like these little heartfelt moments for me of like little fun discoveries that you otherwise wouldn't come up in like a serious conversation about like, oh, if I want to learn about my mortgages, Kai's not gonna be like, well, this is what my logo means. But this is just something like fun and so like just kind of off the cuff that we talked about. And I think most of my clips are kind of these random little fun moments, these that speak that I just remember. It's the little things. Anita's highlighting the big takeaways, but for me, it's just the little things.
Her jokes. She likes to play her jokes out
The
like
bits.
it's like
It's
your
literally
bits.
just Tiffany's highlighted bits. Oh, and I wanted to just comment like my hair looks really good in that clip, right? Like the bangs. That's also why I picked it.
Yeah. All right, next. All right, so for my second clip, this came from our episode 16 with Dr. Lana and Dr. Hua Win, Black Steel Investment Group on resilient roots. So it's capturing a kind of a vulnerable moment for me. So here's a clip.
All right, I've not seen this yet, so I'm excited.
Right, it's like they have given literally everything under the sun, right? And then to me, it's like our careers will always be in the shadow of that. Will always be in the shadow of the people that took that was on the raft, right? It's like that left such hardship in order to be here. There's no PhD, no Ivy League that can supersede that, truly, because they sacrifice their physical well-being. It was literally life or death, right? Yeah. And sometimes I really struggle with that. I find encouragement in that sometimes. And I'm just like, okay, I can take this final, or I can put my name down on this like $20 million project, because you know what? Like there's nothing that's going to be as bad. My mom says, like, what are you so scared of? It's like, there's a time in my life I had to eat rice shells in order to even to survive. And it's like you're not in any place anywhere that you're close to starving. What are you so afraid of? And I think that has truly given a whole lot of I think a lot of power, right? It's a weird balance of a little bit of shame, but so much power too in that, as a daughter of an immigrant or immigrant themselves. Right?
I love that.
Has been a really big shift for me, especially how I handle my investments. I think it's aha moment came from just a little bit of background if you haven't listened to this episode before, but my parents are refugees, and there was a lot of time where my parents would tell me that they didn't have anything to eat, and they sacrificed a lot to come to America and things like that. And so I always struggled with sort of the whole fear of failure, right? Because everything just seems really small compared to the sacrifice that they had given. My dad swam across this channel and became that classic story of only having a couple pennies in your swim trunks. Literally didn't have anything left his home, right? And so everything just felt really small compared to all of that. So I was just feeling really just felt small. Even if I graduated, I graduated from college, or I graduated with my master's, and I did this and that. And so I think the fear of failure was a really big thing for me at that time. And then it's just sort of realizing that I just needed to push myself to do bigger things, and so I was there with everyone else. I was dabbling in residential homes, doing long-term rentals, fix and flips, even short-term rentals. But I think that I have this year and a little bit past that, I really pushed myself to think bigger, get really creative. And so like considering 100-unit properties is something that's just been recent to me, and it's a really scary thought. And so I think reflecting on this episode, I see it's not just about the pressure I'm putting on myself, it's deeper. It's tied to my roots as in an immigrant family. So there's a lot of weight there, but also it forces that there's that immigrant root drives me to be like, what are you really so scared of? Because people that I know, people that are baked literally into my DNA have done the hardest thing, right? They have suffered through this whole thing. And so I think my mom just always reminds me, he's like, what are you so scared of? Just put it like literally just so blasé. It's just like, so you move to a smaller house. So you move to move to a cheaper area. There's like not a situation where you don't have food on the table. There will never be.
Right.
And I think, so, yeah.
I think like, having family, especially like we talk about the diaspora, the Asian American diaspora, right? A lot. Like, I learned a new word in the 2 years that we've been together.
I've not heard that word. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But that's kind of also where the scarcity mindset comes from that we need to unlearn, right? Is because we've been raised around this narrative of like our family fled because they had lost everything, right? And I also think that might be like a self-sabotage thing for me, where it's like I'm almost scared to play too big sometimes because I don't want to draw attention to myself. I want to blend in. I don't want to cause a ruckus. I don't want to make waves because I don't want it taken away from me again, or just weird. It's just a weird. I just don't want to be perceived. That's a weird thing, right? Because from someone who also does stand up and is like, I don't want to. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me.
What do you mean? I don't want to be perceived. Say more.
Like, having people come up with like ideas about who you are, like just because you're putting yourself out there. So even when we did the podcast, right? That was a weird insecurity I had in the beginning. And I always tell people like, hey, if you're listening to our podcast, listen to the most recent episodes and make your way backwards because they get progressively worse from there. And I realized like I think it was this fear of like showing up proud as myself, of like, hey, owning up, like, hey, I do want to achieve these big things. But there was a part of me for a really long time that was blasé about like, nah, I don't need to get all these big things. It really wouldn't affect me. Like just playing it too cool because of the fear of failure of like, if I play so big and I mess up, it's going to be so embarrassing when this blows up in my face. If that makes sense. Like that. So that
does it have to do with like your honor or like your family honor, or is it sort of like your like where does that tie with it?
I think it's more of like more of a humility thing, right? And I think that's the thing that's you have to unlearn from your Asian roots too. Is it's like, playing humble, like, hey, like this, because my fear was like I'd be like, oh my god, hey, look at me, I'm gonna try this big thing, and then everyone's like watching, and then I mess up, and they're like, look at her hubris, her eyes were bigger than her stomach, and like everyone's just it's just a circus act of people watching me fail, and so that was a thing that I was grappling with, of why I didn't want to shoot those big shots, or not shoot those big shots very publicly, because then people would be watching. And now I kind of don't care. I'm like,
yeah, I get that. I think it's a weird place to be big and small at the same time. And there's a play in that, in being Asian, and a play in that as being a woman, right? It's like, yeah, do big things, but keep yourself small.
Yes, it's like be big, but don't be intimidating. And that was right. And that was actually a fun note that one of our friends said to me offline, was like, hey, Tiffany, you're a very intimidating girl, a woman. Like, I would be very afraid to date you. You're nodding your head and you too. You think that too? Anita, thanks.
Dude, you said I was scary when you first met me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anita's also very intimidating. But then I love the counter to that is like, am I intimidating or are you intimidated? Ooh.
Yeah. And that is it, right?
Yeah.
Why should you have to apologize, or, like you're not small enough for this person or this man or whatever? Like, you just be you. Yeah.
Speaking of being you and showing up as yourself, I'm going to run my clip where we have our girlfriends Gina and Susan, and we show up in a very specific way here. Hint, hint. Anita hasn't seen this clip yet, so this is gonna be fun. The four of us were joking about all of us seeing each other at a case.
I wasn't there, by the way.
You were texting me, Gina, so you were there in spirit. And she's like, my friend Susan's there, and she says she might have seen you or Anita. And I think like we might have passed and we locked eyes, and I was like, okay, that girl just looked at me weird. Did you know me? And that same day, Anita was like hounding me. She's like, "You're at a case spot. You need to get naked."
I did. Knew Tiffany would be such a prude.
I only saw you ladies on the profile photos, and I'm like, I don't know if they are the Tiffany and the Anita, right? And
Susan 100% saw Anita naked. I promise you.
I don't know.
Korean spas are like the ultimate bonding experience.
Yeah, it was really weird.
This clip is from our Galentine's Day double date episode where we had Gina Shin and Susan No sit with us, and they're very like they talk about not wanting to playing big and not wanting to be perceived. These two girls are such heavy hitters in the space. Like Gina's always posting clips of, you know, her networking, her $1 billion network. And I'm so proud of like all this stuff that she's putting out there. And Susan is like very vocal about all these like moves she's making in Philadelphia with like her new projects. And they've like, you know, kind of, I think they've met through the SARE network too, or one of those, like, I think they met at some Korean professional networking.
I think they were at some conference and they were like the two Korean chicks and they just like gravitated towards each other. Yeah, I think.
Basically. But this clip was from you know, the time Anita treated me to a case spot, and I was like, hey, because this was before our first sorority Dallas trip together, just to give people some context of this big trip we were planning, and we were already like stressed out because we've not undertaken an event that big together yet, right, as partners. And it really, I think for me, it showed where I was like, I kind of felt inadequate in meeting your expectations. And I was like, and you were very disappointed in how little I showed up. Anyway, that is a whole other discussion altogether. But this whole case spot thing was our way of just like chilling with each other before like the big event like came. Yeah, like we were doing the case spot before the Dallas trip, just to like bond and like be together and whatnot. But it was also my first case spa experience, so I thought we were like just in for massages. I thought this was like a Western spa. No, so case spas are just, like, there's a whole section where people just get butt ass naked, and I didn't realize that until like I got into the locker room and everyone was like down to nothing around me, and Anita was just like, hey, so you're gonna jump in the pool? And so like Anita went and did that, and I was like in like wandering around the other rooms waiting for her to get out of the naked area to come. But
well, you know, to be honest, and this was my gift to Tiffany, by the way, I totally thought that someone who could stand on stage and literally just be in front of people telling jokes would be more chill. I don't know about like, I don't know, I guess exposing yourself. I guess it's I just a different kind of exposing myself is what I, you know, what we learned. But Tiffany is not chill with that. But however, she will stand in front of people with absolutely nothing prepared. And I would say I would take the case spot if like it's half
you would be Anita would rather be physically naked in front of strangers than stand in front of a stage and have nothing.
Call me Californian, but hell yeah. I don't know.
But to take this full circle, Susan and Gina were also on this summit, and Susan decided to go to that same case spot, and none of us had met yet. So Susan saw us and she was like looking at me weird. So this was just a fun reminder of that case spot memory, which is why I ran this clip. Yeah, and I think Susan saw Anita naked. That was her first impression of Anita.
Yeah, that's
good. All right.
Okay, so I'm heading my last clip. So this again came from our episode 16 with Dr. Alana and Dr. Hua on resilient roots.
The one thing I would always ask is, was there one singular moment in time where you felt like you did the one thing and then the momentum just started rolling, and then that was the start of, you know, stardom for you?
You know, it goes way back. You know, for me, it wasn't even in the entrepreneurial world. It was just a moment of where I took a stand. And I remember that moment vividly because I was 15 years old. And at 15 years old, When I saw my mom, my dad had passed and she was in a bad relationship, and she was in a very abusive relationship. And when I came home from school one day and I heard screaming in the room, and I saw this man like beating up on my mom. So 15 years old, I remember like it's vividly, because that is the moment where I said no more. I will never, ever allow someone to do this, right? And so I think at that moment, my becoming of who I stood as, what I wanted in my life and what I dreamed of. My dreams were so big, and I took a stand. And that moment, that was the hardest moment of pain, witnessing that. And I wanted to protect my mom, but so for me, I never wanted to be in the position where I ever felt like I had to succumb to somebody else because of, and I never wanted to feel weak. And so I always say everyone has a lioness in them. And there's always a pivotal moment in your life where you know that no more, that's, you're going to do everything no matter what. And that was my moment when I was 15 years old and bearing that pain, because even now talking about it, it brings back emotions, and I've dealt with that, and I'm good with that. And I blessed him, because I'm like, I thank him. I'm so grateful for him, because I am the person I am today with the grit and everything I've gone through because of that very moment. And I always remind myself, when I have moments where I have weak moments occasionally, which we all do, I remember the feeling of that moment, and I'm back on track. And I encourage everyone that, you will have pivotal moments in your life, but you decide. It's a decision. It's a decision when you're like, okay. And once it's a domino effect. Once you are so strong at the core and you have the no matter what mentality, things will start falling in place, and you're going to make it happen. You will create it. You're not going to wait for anything to happen, because you're going to create it for yourself.
So I think this for me was like a lightning bolt moment for me. And I swear every time I just get to know Hua a little bit more, I'm just like, oh my God, she's such an incredible human being. Like every time it's just, if you don't know, like Dr. Hua, she is just an incredible syndicator, just really well known in the space, but she's also a refugee, right? So she's gone through a lot of stuff, including this, which we were so happy to have her share on our podcast. But I think this moment for me was like I came to realize pain's got power. It's got purpose.
Ooh, pain's got power. We avoid pain so much, but we're really avoiding coming into our power by avoiding pain.
Okay. Yes. It's to me, it's just like not something just to shy away from. It's this fierce, fiery thing that can push you and can mold you. And pain, man, it's not just hurt, it's a tool, it's a teacher. So it's got this strange way of sharpening you. And so I would say that it's, use it as a catalyst, and use those bottom moments, just dig down there, and then remember like those darkest moments that you have. Like you don't need to, it wouldn't have never been more painful than that, whatever you're doing now. So, and again, maybe it's that like turning pain into courage, because without pain, there is no growth, as Brene Brown says, right? So that was a really lovely moment.
Trauma is transformative.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna end our segment with a rapid fire question. Is that right with you?
Why would we do rapid fire?
Because I would say we do it on every episode, so I think we should. I just did a few of them.
Oh man, I don't have my button in Gmeet.
It's fine. Okay. Pew, 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 pew. All right, rapid fire questions for Anita and Tiffany. Okay. You will answer first, and I'll answer the second. Okay.
Oh wait, that's how we're doing it.
Yes.
Okay.
What is the hardest part of making a podcast for you?
Finding guests now.
That is not hard anymore, actually.
It's not. All right, fine. But they're actually making a podcast. This isn't hard. The podcast, I will say, is not hard at all. Finding guests isn't hard. People like email us wanting to be guests on the show. Not to brag, guys, but our inboxes are full. All right, so I would say the hardest part. It's not the podcast itself, that's not the hard part. I think figuring out what's next for us. I think that's the hard, because I think we got the podcast down. We can podcast all day, dude. This is
not
the fun, easy stuff. But you know what? We also now have a great team of VAs that help make the podcast possible, and
incredible.
that's why we're at 24 episodes. We doubled our episodes season 2 from season 1. How many did we have season 1? I don't know.
17.
Oh, we had 17. What? And we had 24. All right, so we upped it by like what? The 33% our production. That's sick. All right.
Yeah, and I think I'm really grateful for our team too, who have made this part really easy. And then it's I think if I were to do the editing, I would just die. But it's like, I mean, I think we split it in the way that I do the prep work, and we do like the marketing part, but then Tiffany and Mai do a lot of the production and makes it real easy. So we work as a team together. But yeah, the hardest part, honestly, I think for me might be just like the interviewing part. And I think like the refinement. Oh, no. I got my part. Listening to myself after each podcast.
Yeah.
I'm shit at this.
Dude, all right, you want to know the hardest part of making this podcast was cutting the clips.
Yeah, lesson learned. Don't get creative.
We're not going to do any more clip episodes anymore. Unless, you know what, with our new tool, we might do more clip roundups of, I kind of like the discussion, honestly. This format was kind of cool to do as now the clips were ready. Yeah.
I do want to circle back to the whole like refinement thing, because Tiffany and I gave ourselves 100 episodes to basically make our podcast perfect, right? This is the way that we kind of dealt with our perfectionism issues in the very beginning, when we were like struggling to make one episode. We're like, okay, we have to get to 100 episodes, because we can't expect to be making good episodes until really then. So I don't think like we're even there yet. So I think we're still in the process of refining. And I will say we've gotten a lot better since our first episode, I think.
I think so. The last one that we aired, I was able to listen through it, like have it running in the background and be like, this is actually really good. Go us. I'm like, Anita, we found our flow. I would say I could listen to our podcast in a car right now without any
wanting to vomit.
Without wanting to vomit. I was like surprised / mortified that people were coming up to us saying, we listen to all of your podcasts. We're like, really?
Like, are you sure you want to do that?
Sorry.
Yeah, start from the back.
Do I owe you money? Do I owe you money for doing that?
Okay. All right. Second question. What would you tell yourself episode 1 version? What would you tell yourself episode 1, Tiffany?
Podcast episode 1, where I did it with Nelson and you were getting married. That episode made no sense.
I know.
I know. That was the episode that made us realize that everyone needs to have a background, because Nelson's bed was like unmade in the background.
He filmed 2 episodes where his unmade messy room was like the background, and I was like, well, I guess we need to have these yellow things in there.
Yeah. And also we needed a script. So thank you, Anita, for coming back into our life and doing the script. But we had to hustle because we wanted to make a Spotify lineup list. That was why we aired that first episode, but then we made it, and that was the rest is history. Okay.
I would tell my episode 1 version that it's like, just keep going. I would say it's like, I wasn't sure anyone was listening. I still don't think anyone is listening, but people do, and I get those surprises every once in a while. Be like, okay, just keep at it, just keep chugging along. It's like you're gonna find yourself surprised at how refined you are getting, and like the skills that you're building. And then on top of that, just the learning part is already worth it in itself. But then people actually do listen once you start putting in the reps, as they say, right?
I would tell that to Tiffany as a real estate agent, deal number 1 version. Keep at it, like
everything.
Or crappy client number 1 version. Keep at it. Just keep dating. Keep going through it. Get the reps in. Your pitches will get better.
If you feel like you're screaming into an empty cave right now, you're not. You just have to keep doing it, and then people will hear it. It'll get better. All right. What has been your biggest lesson as a podcaster about yourself? think we talked about a little bit about this earlier.
Yeah, we hit that one already. I think biggest lesson as a podcaster, it doesn't need to be perfect. Like and also I love having a co-host. The biggest lesson is I can't do this by myself. And I need to be someone who like
Yeah,
it sucks doing this stuff by yourself. Biggest lesson is if I can add someone to make something more fun and easier. Like I used to hate team projects. I cannot do a podcast if it's not a team project. I can't do anything creative or no, you know what? I will even say I cannot do anything anymore unless I have some type of accountability partner or a team member, like kind of in there, like bouncing ideas off of, because it just gives me the momentum that I could struggle to stir up on my own now. But maybe that's because now I have an ADHD diagnosis, and that's kind of comes with the territory. What about you, Anita? What's your?
It helped. Yeah, I mean, I think that too, right? It's like maybe it's like the Atomic Habits, like James Clear thing. It's like make it easy, make it fun, right? Yeah, hell yeah. You know, it's like if it's not pleasurable, then why am I? It's like what would make me wake up at like Friday mornings to do this? So yeah, I totally hear that.
I have another one. The biggest lesson is people actually care about what we have to say. I used to think that like I didn't want to, again, being perceived, I didn't want to put myself out there. I think early on, you and I were both very surprised by the reception that we got when we told people that we had a podcast. Like I thought people would just kind of like snicker. Like this is me being so self-critical, thinking that people are going to be like, oh, who are you that you have a podcast? But that's like just me and my self-critic. When we've actually told people that we had a podcast, people were genuinely like, oh my God, that's so cool, that even I was taken off guard and confused. Again, when people approach us and say, we've listened to all of your podcasts, I'm still like shook. That was the lesson of like, oh my God, you like me? You actually like us? I get that they like
yeah.
me, like, huh?
I think like maybe this feels like just in the real estate world, but it feels like it's sort of people want like the circles you kind of get into is actually kind of shocking me. Like, you know, oh, let's do a podcast exchange, you know, like there's a lot of that going around. So I think that was really surprising also for me as and honestly, I still haven't found another podcast like ours. So that's cool.
Yeah. So that's a great segue for our next rapid fire question. What New Year's resolution do we have? I'll make you answer this one first because I was first on all the other ones.
New Year's resolution that I have.
I guess for the podcast.
For the podcast. Yeah. I mean, it's as I feel like it's always like I feel like I have a New Year's resolution of make things more relevant for women, you know, but also make things bigger. You know, it's like I want to inspire women that, you know, you can go so much more beyond, not to say against fix and flippers, but there's a lot of that already content going around. And what I want to do is to say like you can go beyond that. You don't have to be doing fix and flips like Joanna Gaines. Not that I don't want to be like Joanna Gaines, because I do want to be like her, but you can do commercial. You can do all like industrial. You can, you know, have a 500 million portfolio, like more than that, if anything. So I think New Year's resolution is to go bigger, and then have women make more money. And I want to hear about it. I want to hear more about those community wins. Yeah,
yes, community wins. I want all of us to win together. That's my New Year resolution. And I've been saying this since year one. I want our podcast to be a community where we can build something big together. This podcast is bigger than ourselves. The fact that our listenership, like when I looked at the Spotify rap stats, I was like surprised that we had so many listeners. And then when we go to the SARE circuit, all the women, even in the virtual coffee chats, they say that they've like binged and listened to all our podcasts on like drives and things. Like I appreciate that, like you guys are giving us time in your airspace to like listen to us, like that we get to be a part of your day. And I hope that the message that we're putting out there like really is evergreen and goes beyond us just recording it, that we're putting something good out there and it energizes you and it reinvigorates you to want to do bigger and better things and improve the communities that we live in. So my New Year's resolution is just to put something firm out there, is I would love to see the SARE Ladies get together and do a really big like goodwill real estate project that like really benefits our community and makes us feel good. And I feel like maybe that's, you know, your Christian value is rubbing off on me, Anita.
Oh gosh.
She makes me go do volunteer work. Now look at me go. That's my New Year's
I would say I totally echo that too. It's like I also would want to see not like I would love to see our message on other platforms too. It's like, I feel like there's a lot of, obviously we're circling a lot amongst Asian women, but I would say if you are just someone that really just supports this mission of seeing more diversity in your space, like in real estate, like we want to just be able to talk about it, because we've done a lot of really awesome stuff, including an awesome data project that we did with a UCLA business school. And so we're studying Asian women out there, and we're like getting data.
We're
So
watching you.
and we're the first doing it, to be quite honest, so we want you to be seen, but we want to be, on the forefront of this too. We want to share with people that support this mission of like wanting to see more diverse faces in real estate, because I think once everyone gets a flavor of this real estate, they can't really stop. It should be equal for everyone, not just certain people, right? So I want to see more of that too.
This reminds me, are you an X-Men fan? Cerebro.
No.
Never mind. Sorry. All right. So for the nerds out there, Anita and I are like Professor Xavier and Magneto when they were like recruiting all the X-Men and looking for the mutants. But the mutants are the SARE Ladies.
Are you our mutant?
You guys are mutants. Find us. Join us.
Join us if you are a mutant. Okay.
Before they became. All right. Anyway, that's awesome.
Right.
This was a great episode. Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Happy holidays. See you 2024, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. But before you go, we've got a quick subtle Asian real estate update for you.
Hey everyone, Michelle Ngo Wong from Lotus Rising here. I'm excited to tell you about our second SARE Ladies and Lotus Rising retreat happening in Oahu, Hawaii. Join us February 1st, 2024 for an unforgettable 4-day weekend retreat dedicated to Asian women's wealth empowerment. Experience our brand new property secluded in paradise for an unforgettable adventure of self-discovery, wellness, and wealth manifestation to kick off 2024 with your sorority sisters. Don't miss this transformative opportunity to rise to your best self. Spots are limited. Reserve your spot today.
Thank you for tuning in to the SARE Ladies podcast hosted by Anita Wong and Tiffany Lee. Special thanks to Subtle Asian Real Estate, LLC, our parent company.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review or follow SARE Ladies on Spotify and Instagram @Subtle Real Estate. You can also click on our show notes to subscribe to our newsletters to stay on top of our news and upcoming events. Until next time, Pod Squatters.